There's a mindset going around. If we don't agree with someone, we don't accept everything about them, we're not loving, and we deserve to be canceled. And truthfully, it's a narrow-minded and very harmful mindset. So let's go into a conversation today about what love really is. Come on, let's go. Welcome to the Purpose Project podcast. My name is Brandon Goff. I get to be the host of this awesome podcast with this amazing audience of people. So glad that you've jumped in today. Hopefully you'll share, like, subscribe, even leave a review for us. We'd love to continue getting this out to the masses. I also get to be the lead pastor of Radiate Church in South Carolina. And last week, we began a series of talks on the Purpose Project about real relationships, building real relationships in life. Now, the whole purpose of this podcast is to help people unlock the purpose that God's put on the inside of them. We believe that every single person, every single one of you has a purpose on the inside that God has placed there. My heart is to go on a journey with you and just to give some tangible, practical ways that we can apply some things in life, biblically and practically and logically, in leadership, in life, in faith, in marriage, in relationships, all throughout life, to really accomplish the purpose that God has put on the inside of us. That includes, as we're approaching the month of love, it includes relationships. Now, I'm not just talking about romantic relationships. We will have a couple of episodes in this series about marriage. My wife is going to join me for one of those. You're going to want to hear from her. She is way better at life and marriage than I am. But we want to talk about how do we build really stable, life-giving, powerful, impactful relationships. Not just romantically, but friendships, acquaintances, coworkers, and all kinds of other relationships that make up all of our lives. And really, they should. Many people struggle with life-giving, meaningful relationships. There's sometimes it's personality-driven. It's an introvert versus an extrovert. And I get that. Sometimes it's trauma-driven is the difficulty. You've been through some things, so trust is not there anymore, and it's hard to open up to people. But the reality is, I believe that God has a purpose for you, and it's discovered in community, not in isolation. I really believe we have a value at our church. And maybe you come to our church, maybe you don't. But one of our values is we do life together. And it is a true belief in my life that life is better in groups. Life is better together. Life is better when we do life together. Somebody to celebrate with us, cry with us, pray with us, laugh with us, whatever it looks like. And so I wanted to take just a few weeks in this month, and I wanted to talk about life-giving, impactful relationships in our lives. The truth is, you've probably seen the headlines, right? You've probably heard the conversations, and maybe some of you have even experienced the fallout of disagreement with people. I never thought that I would have to say that disagreement brings a ton of fallout now, but it really does. And I don't want to shy away as we're talking about logical, practical, biblical things to do in life. I don't want to shy away from the real life examples of things either. Maybe you've experienced the fallout. Maybe you've heard the conversations. Maybe you've seen the headlines, right? It's the idea of what's been deemed this title of cancel culture, right? Cancel culture. Hopefully I don't have to experience it, but cancel culture. It's canceling people based on their views, their opinions, and honestly differing ideas. And it's become quite a popular take on things. If I can just cancel you, honestly, it's a little bit of a bullying tactic. If I can cancel you because you disagree with me, then I can get you to believe me or others to believe me and go on my way. Sometimes, I'll say this, sometimes people need to be called out for hateful rhetoric and vitriolic things. I believe that. Sometimes people need to be called out for those things. And what happens is whenever the cancel culture takes over, is we've gone from calling out hateful rhetoric, like truthfully hateful rhetoric, to now just canceling people because they disagree with us. And in the church world, what happens sometimes is people hop churches because they're searching for accolades for their and acceptance for their decisions, and they don't get them other places, so they'll vilify others until they get to a place that gives them the accolade. And honestly, it's not just church. We kind of do it everywhere. In life, many times what will happen is we'll make a decision, or we'll have a stance or preference, and we're in friendship and relationship with people. You've seen this. Social media has caused this to explode, to where there's a relationship there. And then whenever there's a disagreement about a stance or preference or an ideology or whatever it is, then all of a sudden now I have to create an enemy because they don't disagree with me. So now they're my enemy. And now it blows up into this whole thing. And there's, I don't know, Facebook disputes, and there's Instagram battles, and there's TikTok videos going back and forth. And all these things that take place, and we create enemies to justify decisions. And it's not healthy. It's dangerous to everybody involved. And really the cancel culture and this whole ideology right now, it all centers around this construct being discussed on a pretty consistent basis. It's the construct of love. It's a false, if I'm honest, it's a false definition of love. It's the idea that if I love you, I accept everything about you, and I accept all of your actions, all of your stances, all of your thoughts, and I have no problem with any of them. And it lends to the opposite end of the spectrum, that if I disagree, or if I have a different stance or a different opinion or a different political view or a different biblical or world view, then I'm not loving you. And we've defined love by the agreement of opinion, not the choice of life. And there's an issue that's taken place, and it has really created a chasm between sides. It's destroyed families. It's destroyed friendships. And Christians really get the worst end of this a lot of times. And the catch-22, if you will, for many arguments towards Christians is found in Mark 12 and in Matthew 22, where Jesus is answering a question, and the guy's like, hey, how do I get to heaven? And he says, sell all that you have. And basically here's what he's saying. He's asking a question about the greatest commandment. And he says, the greatest commandment is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, right? And then he says this, the second is like it. So he's asking a question about the greatest commandment. He says, love God, love God, love him with everything you got. Love him with your heart, your soul, your mind, your strength, everything on the end, everything that you have. Love God. And then he says, and the second is just like it. In other words, there's 1A, 1B. This one's 1B. Love your neighbor as yourself. And what happens in Mark 12 and Matthew 22, when Jesus is answering that question about, hey, what's the greatest commandment, is that statement has been taken to mean that I love you if I stand by everything that you're for. I love you if there's no disagreement. And we've taken that series of verses and we've created this narrative of love that is agreement and acceptance. And honestly, that just can't be true. In fact, I'll prove it to you. I told you my wife's going to join us on one of these episodes here soon. And I'll tell you a little bit about her real quick. I love my wife. I've got 3 kids with my wife. I would literally give my life for my family. When I saw my wife 20-something years ago, a little over 20 years ago, step out of her orange Ford Explorer Sport at the church camp that we met at, I'm not kidding you. It was like an angel descended from heaven. She was and still is the single most beautiful soul, the most beautiful person I've ever seen in my entire life. As of this recording, we've been together around 20 years, married for 17, and the more I know her, the more I love her. She gave me 3 incredible kids, Brody, Kylie, and Cullen. Man, incredible kids, full of life, full of love, full of purpose, right? Full of personality. I love being their dad. I love being her husband. In fact, being pastor is actually the fourth best thing that I get to do in my life. The first one is I get to be a disciple of Jesus. The second best thing is I get to be a husband. The third best thing is I get to be a dad. Fourth, I get to be a pastor. I love this stuff, man. It's amazing to me. Now, I love my kids. I love my wife. I'd do anything for them. I'd give anything for them. But if you sit there today listening to this and you think I agree and accept everything about my kids and my wife all the time, I don't really know what to tell you. There's just not an agreement at all times. We argue, we disagree. We have different views on my wife. My wife and I disagree and we have different perspectives on things, right? Sometimes she thinks I'm too hard-lined on a stance and I think she's too soft. Sometimes she thinks I'm too stubborn and I just think she's wrong. My kids think sugar and ice cream are a part of the food pyramid and they should be eating it whenever they want. And we all know it's not. There's disagreement. I don't agree or accept bad attitudes. I don't agree with or accept dishonor, right? Like I don't agree with or accept any of those things. Does that mean that I don't love them? No. That doesn't mean I don't love them. In fact, what I do is I correct it. Right? And here's the truth. Watch this. This is crazy. They get to call me out too. Why? Because that's relationship. It's both ways. We love each other so much. We would all give our lives for each other. And here's what it means. It means we're not always going to be on the same page, but I get to love them anyway. It means that sometimes we don't have to agree to move forward. We don't have to agree to do life. There are times my wife and I have looked at each other and said, we will agree to disagree. And then we go on about life. There is a concept. It's crazy. Here's the deal. We've got to stop pushing this agenda and this narrative that if I don't agree with you, I hate you and I don't love you. In fact, I'll tell you this. I don't think love is tested until there's disagreement. I don't think love is actually tested until there's disagreement. Here's why. It's easy to love somebody that agrees with every single thing that you do. That's easy. That's easy. There's nothing difficult about that. But whenever I have to choose love, when I have to choose to overlook something that I don't necessarily agree with, when I have to choose to walk through that with you and we still do life together and we're still committed to each other and we're still doing this thing together, that's love. I'm a Bible-believing pastor that bases my life, my family, and my decisions on what the Bible tells me, what the Bible teaches me. You may be listening to this today. You may not do that, which means you're going to see things different than I would. And I would say I'm right. And you would maybe say you're right. In either way, we can still go eat tacos and have a good laugh together. It's okay. Now, are we going to talk about our different views? Are we going to try to get the other one to see our side? Sure. But you can do that without canceling. You can do that without hating on somebody and blasting somebody all over social media and creating a spectacle of enemies all over the place. And you're the victim, I'm the victim, whatever. We can do this. So I want to give you just a few ideas on how to love people and do life together. Even when we may disagree, and love people well. Here's a few filters to think through. Number one, here's a reality. My preference isn't always principle. What I prefer sometimes is not a generic principle that everybody must live by. Sometimes it's just my preference. I like for things to be done a certain way. I like, my office, my house. I like my stuff to be set certain ways. I like certain foods. I like certain plates. Those are all preferences. They're not principles. When my preference becomes principle, then I'll make most principles a matter of preference. Here's what I mean by that. When I focus more on my preference, then the principle, if it doesn't fit my preference, I'm not going to live by it. When it's my way or no way, the sturdy, steady principles of life, love, and leadership won't stand because I don't prefer them. They don't fit what I like and what I want, what I prefer, so the principle goes to the side. And here's the truth. There is no my truth. There is the truth. There is principle. There are principles in life that just work. And even if I don't prefer them, they still work, right? Just remember, sometimes what you prefer is simply how you want it done, which is awesome, which is great. I don't think that's wrong. I think we all have our preferences for things. But just don't make it something everyone has to prefer. Your preference, my preference, isn't always principle. Here's another filter. Not everyone sees what I see. Man, I think sometimes we only see through our filter and we think everybody sees through our filter. But not everybody sees what we see. My life is rooted in the Bible. It's the clear way of living a life for and chasing after God. Not everyone I encounter in life sees it that way. I want them to, but they don't sometimes. And a surefire way to keep them from seeing things biblically is holding them to a standard they don't even value yet. So here's what I mean. Give some time for people to work out their own salvation in their own life. Give some time for people to draw closer to God themselves. If you're in a relationship with God, give others some time for that. You didn't draw closer to God overnight. Like it takes time. Wherever you are in life, it's the same concept. Give truth in the context of relationships, but also give grace. There's a biblical truth in this and a principle called truth and grace. If you give truth but no grace, you're just a jerk. If you give grace and no truth, you're too soft. But if you give truth and grace, here's a truth, but here's some grace behind it. Man, it changes everything, right? So just remember, whatever you're going through today, maybe it's spiritual. I use the spiritual concept here, but whatever you're going through today and whoever you're dealing with, just remember, not everybody sees things the way that you do. Here's another filter for you. Take your stand and move forward. Take your stand and move forward. Please, I'm not telling you today, don't take a stance on what you believe. I'm not going to tell you that because I think we need to. Too many people in the world today waffle and waver on their stances, especially believers in Jesus, especially Christians. Take your stance, hold your ground. If it's biblically based, then I especially tell you, plant your flag in the ground and you stand there. But just remember, you can do life with others that don't see things your way. It is okay. Loving others is an agreement, but it's also not isolation. Okay? It's loving others is not agreement, but it's also not attack. As long as the situation isn't toxic and abusive, you can still do life together and have different views. So take your stance. But just remember, you can move forward with relationship. And lastly, last filter, know when to walk away. In fact, I'm not even going to go into that one in this one because we're going to pick up an entire episode on that next week about toxic behaviors and knowing when to walk away. This week, though, my hope is that we can walk away and we can be confident in loving others and doing life together. And we don't have to create this hatred. I want to be very clear. Love is not blind agreement and acceptance. That's not love. In fact, I love you when I correct. I can disagree. We can agree to disagree and still have a relationship together. Love is a choice. There's more than enough. There's more than enough hate and vitriol throughout the world. And it is beyond time that mature Christians, mature Christ followers, and mature people step up and exhibit a love that does life together even when we disagree. It is beyond time that we begin to bring the chasm back together again. So this week, let's go out in the world and just love people well. Let's smile, high five, laugh, compliment, encourage, and do what you can to make somebody's day every day. I bet it'll change your life and it'll change theirs. Here's why. Because you matter, and watch this, and they matter. You matter to us, you matter to God. We all have a purpose, and we can all go change the world. Let's continue the conversation next week, same place, same time.